Hare Krishna, everybody. Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Welcome to day 20 of our Vraja-mandala Parikrama. And today is an exceptional day. Today we will attempt to enter the teachings of two great personalities who have their disappearance, their tirubhav today. So we'll try to share some of their teachings from their lectures, and Srila Vamana Maharaj from his letters. So we'll share this to the best of our ability. So now we'll have our kirtan.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Adhikaya Priyatmane Sri Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatyarishatarine Namna Om Vishnu Padaya Gaura Prishtaya Bhutale Sri Bhakti Pragyana Keshava Iti Namine Namna Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Sada Swami Niti Namine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Munindra Vrinda Vandite Triloka Shoka Harini Prashanna Bhakta Pankaja Nikunja Bhuvilasini Rajendra Vanurandini Rajendra Suna Sangate Radhakarishya Srihamam Kripata Taksha Vanjanam Ashoka Vrishabhallari Vitana Mandapa Site Pravala Vala Pallava Pravala Nandi Komale Parabhaya Spuratare Prabhuta Sambadalaye Radhakarisha Srihamam Kripata Taksha Vanjanam Ananya Ranga Mangala Prasanga Mangura Brahman Sabi Brahman Sasambramam Vijayagana Nirantaram Vashikita Pratinandanandane Sajakamisha Sriyama Vipata Dakshavardana Suvarna Champaka Padita Dora Vigrahe Uka Prabha Parasta Jodi Sharadenu Mangale Chitra Chitra Sancharat Chakora Savalochane Vajakari Sriyama Vipata Dakshavardana Yogane pramoda mandalamdite priyanuragalamdite kalavilasavandite ananya danya kunjaraja kamakeviko vite narajanishya shriyama vipadadashavajana Sheshamana Baba Gira Hira Hara Ushite Kumba Kungi Kumba Sheshamana Hasya Chunda Purna Sotya Sagare Nagari Siyama Vipada Dakshavajana Malita Ranga Ranga Dolate Nakadalasu Lola Nila Lochana Malokane Alalalandi Ranga Notya Gupta Mohana Shrike Dharani Siyama Vipada Dakshavajana Malikam Shita Trilekam Dukam Dore Vishukramandali Guna Virata Dikti Salola Nila Kunjana Prasuna Jojagam Virte Gyanagari Shashikama Vipata Kashamandana Virupakamanasanam Avedadam Rajendrasunumandala Deshanam Agatarishya Sriramam Kripakatakshatam Sucharuvatra Sukarnaratnakandalam Suchachitam Gakandalam Namami Nandanandalam Sudirganetra Pankajam Sikishikandamurgajam Anandakoti Ahanam Namami Nandanandalam Sukhasikhalamoktikam Swajandadam Tapamtikam Tavam Budam Dachitanam Namami Nandanandalam Kaena Vena Ranjitam Gati Kirinda Ranjitam Dukula Pita Somanam Namami Nandanandalam Deha Sundaram Nagabhiti Sudakaram Amulya Ratna Bhushanam Namami Nandanandalam Sugandha Anga Saurabham Muda Virajita Shubham Surashrivasamam Shanam Namami Nandanandalam Yadavasudhagaram Vilasamudavasasam Surendravabhoshanam Namami Nandanandalam Vrajandala Sunayakam Sada Sutta Pradayakam Vrajandala Praloganam Namami Nandanandalam Srinandanandalam Adherya Shadhayam Vita Karedvavam Hindustaram Kavedvaram Priyamanam Namami Nandanandalam Namami Nandanandalam Namami Nandanandalam Namami Nandanandalam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Jaya Guru Deva 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 Jaya Guru Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol,
Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Garanga Ganhavika Giridhari Radha Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Jai Radha Govinda Ju Ki Jai. Radha Gopinath Ju Ki Jai. Nityananda Rai Ki Jai. Sachinandana Gaura Hari Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishna Om Asto Tadasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishna Om Asto Tadasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Gosvami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishna Om Asto Tadasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikrama Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishna Om Asto Tadasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishna Om Asto Tadasara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishna Om Asto Tadasara Shishimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Paramahamsa Mahabhagavat Srila Gaura Kishodas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Baladevi Dibhushan Gaudi Vrantaracharya Ki Jai. Jai Srila Vishnath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Rasik Siromani Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Treya Ki Jai. Jai Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhata Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattadasa Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu's Ki Jai. Jai Swarab Damodar Rai Ramananda Gaur Parsada Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikha Hol Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Jamuna Ki Jai, Brihat Mridanga Ki Jai, Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Nam Bhajan Ki Jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Ki Jai, Nishingadev Bhagavan Ki Jai, Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai, Antadvip Mayapur, Simantadvip, Gautam Deep, Madhidip, Koladip, Rijiji, Janadip, Modinvip, Budvip, Atmaka Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Bandiravan, Badravan, Belvan, Lohavan, Mahavan, Madhuvan, Talvan, Kamudvan, Bahulavan, Vrindavan, Kadyavan, Kamyavan, Vraja-mandala Ki Jai. Ujavrat Ki Jai, Damodar Vrat Ki Jai. Tirabhav Mahotsav, Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Gosvami Maharaj Ki Jai. Tirabhav Mahotsav, Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikrama Maharaj Ki Jai. Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Golda Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Om Mirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Prabhajantamana Petyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tammayatayo Taravavidustam Sarvabhutam Hridim Munamanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptashta Karmadi Tarangamadye Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapana Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Baradram Tato Mamanasti Katyana Kapi Anapita Chirim Chirat Kuruna Vardino Kalo Samarapaitam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Haripurata Sundaratu Dikatamba Satipita Sada Hridare Kanare Svaratu Vasachinandanaha Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvaivina Iti Vignaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charantikam. I'm first of all offering millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my beloved Gurudev Nitya Lila Pravishna Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again today millions of times unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Leela Pravishna Om Asto Tadasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Gosvami Maharaj. And again the same unto our dear Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikrama Maharaj. And unto our most beloved Nitya Leela Pravishna Om Asto Tadasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And all our esteemed Rupanuga Guru Vargya and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Papnibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha. So today is a very potent Tirabhav, because the two personalities that we are going to be glorifying today were so potent personalities themselves. They would come to support my Gurudev's Vraja-mandala Parikrama many times, especially Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj. He would come even in his older years. He would carry a stick in the end, and he would have one sevak who took care of him completely. He didn't have any disciples. He had chosen not to have disciples, and we should understand that these three personalities, my Gurudev, Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Gosvami Maharaja, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj, they made up the mutt after Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj had left this world. They were the three stalwart. This described the three pillars of the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. All three of them were sold out sevaks of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. Srila Vamana Maharaj, he joined at a very early age, about 8 years old. His name was Santosh. And his mother brought him, Bhagavati Devidasi, and she was a disciple of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. And she brought her young son when he was about 8 or 9 years old and offered him to the mutt. So this is the extraordinary life of Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj. He was there at 8 years old. And Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he entrusted him at that time. He gave him Diksha, he gave him Harinam, but then he entrusted him into the hands of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, who would be known Bihari at that time. So to be trained basically in all the different precepts. And he was such an excellent student. He was always very quiet, very studious. He never was frivolous at all. In his whole childhood, he just was never inclined in that way. And he would studiously render service to all the Vaishnavas. Whenever there was a feast or mahotsav, or even just a regular prasadam, he would put all the banana plates down, he would put the salt on the plates, the lemon on the plates, etc. And he would wait until the Vaishnavas had finished, and he would clean them all up, mop the floor, etc. And very attentive to the details of serving the Vaishnavas. And Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj promised him a sweet every time he could come to him with a new verse. So Srila Vamana Maharaj, or Santosh at that time, his name was Sajjan Brahmachari. Sajjan Brahmachari. He started off, Santosh was his family name, then Sajjan Brahmachari. Then he would come sometimes once, twice, or 3 times a day for his sweet. He was a young boy, unpolluted, mind unpolluted. So his memory and intelligence were very strong and powerful. And finally, in his later years, he was like an encyclopedia of verses. There was no verses that Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj didn't know in his later years. He was familiar with all Siddhanta and Shastra. And this was his childhood. And his service to Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj was absolutely dedicated. Then after, in 1937, I think it is, or 35, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati leaves this world. Maybe it's 1935. Then there was, of course, disruption in the Math, as we've already heard about. And there was a case against Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. And he was actually jailed along with 40 other devotees for some days in the jail. And at that time, our Sajjan Maharaj, he didn't have Diksha, and he was cooking for all the devotees in the jail, and he'd dutifully bring it daily in tiffins, etc. And at that time, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, he gives him Diksha mantras because he needs the Diksha to actually cook. So he was given Diksha at that time. But he would come to the jail and he would bring just a little way, basically. He must have been 12 years, 13 years old, something like that at that time. But performing all this dedicated seva. So that mood of dedication, soberness, quietude, and not frivolous behavior in any sense at all. So this is the character of Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Gosvami Maharaj. And there's so many incredibly illuminating pastimes in his seva. One time he was really, really sick. He had a fever of over 101, 102, like this fever. And Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj came to the Math with about 5 devotees, senior devotees. And there was no one else in the Math except Sajjan Brahmachari. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj requested him to cook, even though he was so feverish and sick. And he got up and he cooked the entire feast and all the preparations. He understood because he had cooked, he had watched the cook cooking for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and he'd understood all the delicacies of Vaishnava cooking from a very early age. So he was an expert. So he cooked so many preparations, served them all, cleaned all the paraphernalia, the pots and everything, put everything away, and then collapsed on his bed after this. So this sort of, my Gurudev describes there was never a time when he wasn't ready to give his entire life to his Gurudev in service. He was this type of nishta he possessed, and totally dedicated all, through all his activities. Just trying to think of some other.
Just read one today, an amazing.
Just give me the hints and I'll probably get it.
When Srila Bhaktivedanta Sajjan Maharaj, his Guru Maharaj, said, "Oh, bhai, Guru bhai," and Sajjan Brahmachari looked around, didn't see anybody else there. He said, "Who are you calling for, Maharaj? Which of your godbrothers are you calling for?" And Sajjan Brahmachari, he said, "Oh, I'm calling for you." "Me? I'm not your god brother." "No, you received Harinam from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. You are also my god brother." At which point, Srila Sajjan Brahmachari, he put his head down. He said, "Oh, so now you are rejecting me? Now you are not my shelter anymore because you say I am your god brother? Then my life is useless. I have no shelter." And he began to weep. And Srila Keshav Maharaj came over and stroked and patted his head, and smiling, he said, "I was just testing you. I just wanted to see. I am very, very happy. You are eternally my disciple." And this came about from some question that somebody had asked Srila Vamana Maharaj later. Because you took Harinam from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, so does that mean that he is your guru, so that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is my Param Guru? And he was taking pride in that. And at that point, Srila Vamana Maharaj explained this very clearly. No, you can only have one Param Guru. I am your guru, your Diksha Guru, your Mantra Guru is your only Guru.
turn the camera on him. Why do you not get a shot? Saying all that with no picture. He's got his garland on today as well. Turn it now, so people can see who is just speaking.
That's the other one.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. So, also there's the pastime demonstrating the extreme affection of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj for Sajjan Brahmachari, when Sajjan Brahmachari would always sit beside him and take notes for the Patrika, this Bhagavat Patrika that they would publish. Sometimes a few copies in a week they would publish. And he would sit beside him and take notes. And my Gurudev describes that his writing was like pearls, a row of pearls. It was absolutely beautiful. And it never ever needed any editing or any proofreading. When he wrote it first time, that was ready for print practically. They simply had to type that out and copy it. So sometimes it's described that he would be during a parikrama, Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj, and he'd be speaking to many people at the same time. And then Sajjan Maharaj would be sitting beside him and say, and interject, oh, excuse me, we need something for the Patrika magazine. And at that point, even amongst all those people, he would just say for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes what he wanted to say in the Patrika. And at that time, Srila Vamana Maharaj would write everything down very clearly. And then Srila Keshav Maharaj would go back to discussing in a general darshan with all the different people. And then Srila Vamana Maharaj would go away and put all that together for the Patrika. So his expertise was absolutely focused. This is the impression that we get. And there was a time in the printing press when the tips of his fingers were actually sliced by the, if you've ever seen a printing press, the way it works really strongly. So it whacked his fingers really badly. And Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj was weeping. And he quickly took him to Calcutta and bandaged it up and stayed with him the entire time until it was totally fixed and everything. And even today, when he used to come, and we used to see his fingers had actually had the scars where he'd been sliced by the printing machine. So the affection of Srila Keshav Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj, for Sajjan Maharaj was extreme. That because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had placed him in his hands for responsibility as a small child, and he'd taken care of him since that time. Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj used to come to the mutt sometimes during our parikrama times. I can remember 2 or 3 times he stayed in Rup Sanatan. My Gurudev would always become very, very animated when Srila Vamana Maharaj came. He would start running around and doing so many extra services that we'd never seen him do before. He would run and get the seat for Srila Vamana Maharaj. He would get the mat for his, any service he could do for Srila Vamana Maharaj. And he'd demonstrate this to us. There was a time in Navadvip when we used to have a meeting before the parikrama, and he invited, this was when he first came back from the West, and he invited Srila Vamana Maharaj to come to that meeting. And my Gurudev had been telling Srila Vamana Maharaj what the West was like. The first person that my Gurudev went to see after he came back from the West was Srila Vamana Maharaj. And he was describing it in such an animated way about the Western world, to Srila Vamana Maharaj, how there were no people. You could just drive out in the country and you wouldn't see anybody. I mean, this was one of the most, impressive things about the West for my Gurudev. Where are all the people? Many times they'd just be in the country and there'd be no people. So, and all the different experiences that my Gurudev had gone through. But Srila Vamana Maharaj, his eyes were lit up like 2 light bulbs listening to these pastimes of my Gurudev. And when he came to the meeting this time, my Gurudev immediately called for an arti tray. Then he stood up and he very carefully performed full arti of Srila Vamana Maharaj in front of us all and chanting the Guru Vandanam prayers. And Srila Vamana Maharaj would just sit and gaze into the sky. But we should understand in Navadvip, both Srila Vamana Maharaja and my Gurudev, they had their rooms next to each other in a wing, and we could circumambulate both of the rooms simultaneously. And when Srila Vamana Maharaj wanted to offer his darshan, his doors, he had two doors on either side of his room. They'd both be open so people could stream past and just keep going on their parikrama. And he would sit inside a very tight mosquito net, sit behind the mosquito net. And he had these very thick horn-rimmed glasses. And if you try to look into his eyes were so big behind the glasses, behind the spectacles. But he was so sober, but he was still connecting with every single person you could see. Every single person who came, he knew exactly who they were. He wouldn't speak very much, but he would connect with them. Especially in his later years, he basically stopped speaking altogether. It almost appeared like material dementia, but it wasn't. But this is how he was leaving the world. When he was leaving the world, because he came to stay one time in Govardhan, and a place was rented for him on the Govardhan Parikrama. If you know where we were describing yesterday, Dan Gati, just down from Dan Gati, where the Hanuman form is, just opposite there's a small Gaudiya Math, and they took a room for him there, and he stayed there for about 3 or 4 weeks, just alone. And then there was one brahmachari with him who was bringing his prasadam every day. But at that time, he wasn't speaking with anybody. So, but just his potency, being around him, his potency was extreme. You could tell instantly, this is not a mortal person. He's not from this world. Just his whole vibration and personality was so powerful, such a pure personality. So this was Srila Vamana Maharaj. And Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was quite different. In contrast, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was always poking my Gurudev. He would always take the side of Krishna. Whenever my Gurudev took the side of Radhika, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj would take the side of Krishna and support Krishna's mood. And this, we all understood, was to bring out my Gurudev's passion for Radhika. Because when my Gurudev had any opposition to Radhika's nishta or focus, then he would just become on fire. And Srila Trivikrama Maharaj would regularly bring this out. So they were always having these very, very loving quarrels between themselves. And we would just all be sitting there astonished at the way Srila Trivikrama Maharaj would act with my Guru. Srila Trivikrama Maharaj especially, I can remember when I first met him, was very early on for me, in about 94, 95, no, maybe earlier than that. No, 94 maybe. I was on my way up the stairs to visit my Gurudev, and he was in a room underneath my Gurudev. Always he took the lower position in every single situation. He would never want to put himself forward. This was his remarkable, natural humility. There was nothing false about him whatsoever. He had just decided that Srila Vamana Maharaj was initiating everybody, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj was supporting everyone. Later on, Srila Vamana Maharaj instructed Bhaktivedanta Narayana Maharaj that you should also now initiate all these Western disciples. No one else wanted them. So Srila Narayana Maharaj would be initiating all of those. But Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, he never initiated in his life. And perhaps there was one sevak. There was one dedicated sevak was always with him towards the end, but I don't think he was his disciple. But he acted like a disciple. He did all the things that a shishya would do. But Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was always very jovial. He was always in a mood of ecstasy, and his eyes were always filled with tears. I can remember coming to the place in Pavan Sarovar. In Pavan Sarovar, if we haven't been there yet on our parikrama, it's in Nandagaon. And there's the Bhajan Kutia of Sanatana Goswami. And I can remember we were all sitting there, and Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was just a mess of tears. Just tears were just pouring from his eyes. And then my Gurudev passed in the microphone. And Srila Trivikrama Maharaj just looked at the microphone, just kept on weeping, and then passed it back again. There was no way he could say anything. And so many times he would just begin to weep. Sometimes he could say a few things, but for the most part, he was just weeping in contemplation and remembrance of all the different pastimes that were there. So these were the sort of personalities that my Gurudev grew up with, so to speak. And my Gurudev relates that Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was like his personal Shiksha Guru when he first came. Srila Vamana Maharaj was instructing him in so many ways, but my Gurudev says that most of the time he was being taught directly by Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, taught about how to do so many different things and so on. And just trying to remember one pastime there. I think this is the pastime. Somebody can correct me if I get it wrong. But there was a time when my Gurudev had to be responsible for the audio unit that they carried on their Bengal prachar. They would go to the different villages and they would set up like a projector, and they would have all the images, and then Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj would speak about the different places and so on. The village people, they really appreciated that. And there was a time when my Gurudev had forgotten to bring the machine, or forgotten one part of the machine. And he was really, really worried. And he ran to Srila Trivikrama Maharaj for shelter. What shall I do? What shall I do? Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, he just said, don't do anything. When it comes time for the projector, just say to Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta, oh, it's not working today. And that's the end of it. So don't make any drama about it. Just be calm and just say like, and actually it's described that what happened that night is that Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj didn't even ask for the projector. It wasn't even asked for. But in a time like that, Srila Trivikrama Maharaj always knew. He was like the manager between the three. Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vamana Maharaj, he was so immersed in the Shastra. It's described that he would sometimes read 5 or 6 chapters a day of Srimad Bhagavatam. He would just be immersed in the pastimes of the Bhagavatam, and so dedicated to the Bhagavatam and the moods, etc., of the Bhagavatam, that he didn't have time to attend to all the details of the management, because in those days they didn't have so many people managing the different temples. They had the Devananda Gaudiya Math, which Srila Bhaktivedanta Keshav Maharaj had originated and had put on the map, so to speak, but they were always doing construction and extra guest houses and so on, building on it. So this was actually all came to the charge of Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj. He was doing a lot of this work because he wasn't so involved in coaching the devotees directly in the same way that Srila Vamana Maharaj. Srila Vamana Maharaj was acting in the capacity of like guru, because actually he was the guru at that time for most of the disciples there. Most of the followers there were his direct disciples, because the three of them, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj, Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, had agreed, yes, only Srila Vamana Maharaj will initiate. So this was going to make it very simple. They were going to have no squabbles amongst them, because the history of the Gaudiya Math, there'd been so many squabbles, etc., over who was the guru. So they agreed amongst themselves that yes, Srila Vamana Maharaj is most certainly the most qualified and certainly the most senior. He's actually direct Harinam of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So he was the guru. And even all the personalities who we might have thought in the Mathura, Keshavji Gaudiya Math, were disciples of my Gurudev, were all disciples of Srila Vamana Maharaj. Kirtaniya, Krishnadas, he was disciple of Srila Madhav Maharaj, disciple of Vamana Maharaj, Ban Maharaj, disciple of, all were all disciples of Srila Vamana Maharaj. So this was how they steadied the Mat for their future progress. And then my Gurudev took up the service of the Parikramas and was arranging that very enthusiastically. For 60 years, he arranged and organized all the Parikramas. But Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was always like the mainstay. He considered himself something of a manager. Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj was a very sweet, beautiful. He was a very accomplished musician. He could play sitar, he could play veena, many stringed instruments he could play. And when he spoke English, his English was absolutely fluent. His English didn't have any quaint accents to it at all. He spoke completely fluent. He didn't speak English very much, but when he did speak English, it would be very fluent. And obviously he'd had a good education. He'd gone through his educational. He was in the Grihastha ashram. He was married. He often tells the story that when his wife suspected that he might leave the home and come into the mat, she says, well, I'm going to pour petrol on me and burn myself. This is generally what the Indian women say to try to control their husbands. And immediately Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj said, I will give you the matches.
Oh my God.
This is what he wasn't going to be browbeaten by, the threats of his wife. And he had children also, and he left. And it's described that when his family members came to the mat to visit him, he was always very, very harsh with them. If his mother or father or any of his family members came. And one time, my Gurudev, he cautioned, he said, why are you so harsh with them? You should at least, they've come a long way to visit you. And he said, well, if I was nice to them for a moment, they'd be here every day. They'd be here coming for me, trying to pull me out. So Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was a very real kind of like, he was in our world that we can relate to. He was very, I can remember one time seeing him, and he asked me at that time, how was I? And I said, I'm fine. And then I said something about, my wife. I was in the Grihastha ashram then. Oh, your wife? She's your wife, is she? He went on and on and on, telling me that, I am the owner of this person, like that. And he just really wanted to bring a hammer down and instruct me that this was not my property or anything like that. But he was always very direct, but in a very loving way. It was never direct with the slightest hint of harshness. You might meet many direct people, and they're a little bit aggressive behind the directness. But Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was never like that. He just wasn't like that. You could sense he only had our welfare at heart completely. Because he had to be strong in many instances with the various managerial decisions that he had to make. He had to be very direct, etc. So he had this nature that was able to do like that. And because of that nature, he decided that he would accept any disciple. So I want to read to you today something of his lecture, because I was thinking beforehand that this is a beautiful old Harmonist magazine, and I was considering how to actually get the mercy of these personalities more than just describing their external characteristics and behavior, which in my instances is limited because I only had, 20, 30 times I wasn't working with these people in these personalities in the same way. So it was just like seeing from the outside like that. I was telling you actually one story when I first met Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, that I was on my way up the stairs to see my Gurudev in his room. And he saw me going up the stairs, and he called. I was with my former wife at that time. He called us into his room. And he was just sitting on a bed, didn't have any sannyas cloth on. I didn't know who he was. I thought he was just a brahmachari. And he was just so nice to us. He was asking us all sorts of questions in perfect English. All sorts of questions, where we'd come from, what we're doing, why did we come to this person upstairs? What was the big attraction with this person? He was questioning us like that and making us speak some glories of Srila Gurudev. And then I was anxious to actually go, but I stayed. He made us stay. He sat us down and made us stay, and was talking to us in such a friendly manner. And then finally we went upstairs to see my Gurudev. And then only after I realized, this is Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj. but his whole nature was so unassuming. But when he spoke with the cutting edge of Shastra in a very sublime, beautiful way. So I want to read. This is a taste, honestly, this is really his personality. I started to look at this before. The title of it, Who Can Be a Real Guru? And this is by Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Gosvami Maharaja. And this is spoken in the Devananda Gaudiya Math in Navadvip in 1998. This is on March 8th. So more than likely this will be during the Gaurpanim Parikrama time. So the heading is, the conditioned soul is never equivalent to Guru. So he speaks, the significance, Gurutva, of a substance varies depending on the qualification of the perceiver. Understand? What we're perceiving, it depends on the qualification of the perceiver, what we actually see. Our endeavor to acquire objects with our senses often meets with failure, and we give up trying. Our senses are especially incapable of attaining that which is beyond this material nature. You can't acquire something transcendental by material means. You can only be purified transcendentally to have the qualification to receive the mercy from transcendence. You can't cross over that boundary just by material logic and expertise at all, even though we may try from yogic processes and stuff like that. You can't breach transcendence with the material senses. Our senses are especially incapable of attaining that which is beyond this material nature. For this reason, the scriptures state, Aprakrit vastu nahi prakrita gochara, Veda purnate e kahe nirantara. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 9. The Vedas and Puranas always assert that spiritual substance can never be comprehended by the mundane senses. Very beautiful quote. So he opens like this. There is a difference of hell and heaven between my narration of the glories of the spiritual master and the narration given by one who is really tattva gyan, well versed in conclusions of all the scriptures. So he's expressing his own humility here. He's saying that his appreciation or his expression of the glories of Guru is very, very limited compared to a tattva gyan, but he actually was tattva gyan. A soul who is conditioned carries egotistical pride in being a disciple. Therefore, his descriptions of his Gurudev's glories lack the potency of one who is a true disciple. That is very, very beautiful. A true disciple is looking only to give loving glorification, nothing to do with his own prowess. And I did that, and I did this, and I did that, and so on, putting the I in front of the glory of the Guru. But this is what he's saying, that the inexperienced disciple will put that egotistical mood in his glorification. My chanting of the holy names of the Lord does not have the same quality as the chanting of a truly qualified person, and the Harikatha spoken by an unqualified person such as me is vastly different from the Harikatha narrated by one who is actually qualified. So he's able to speak in this way. With his lotus lips, the spiritual master initiates a person by uttering the Mahamantra into his ear. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A disciple who is still conditioned is never as potent as the spiritual master in uttering the Mahamantra because he lacks the same qualification. All of us have accepted a spiritual master, but in doing so, have we acquired his qualities? Among gurus, thousands of disciples, how many actually realize his significance? This calls for serious contemplation. Not all the disciples of a spiritual master have the same qualification. It differs greatly. We must appreciate this. Sometimes when you're in an institutional environment, you get the impression that we're all doing like the same thing. We're all dressing the same, wearing tilak, coming to Mangaladi together, eating together. It's kind of like we're whitewashing ourselves with the same brush, or we might have that in mind. My Gurudev used to comment on this. He says, when I leave this world, you will look around you and just see who is here. You're not even aware of actually who is in your company at the moment. You're just appreciating, oh, we're all worshipping Gurudev. But when Gurudev leaves, then who are these people that are with you? They are all different. We all have a different relationship with Krishna ultimately. And for that to blossom, sometimes the individual has to go his own road so that he can spread his wings and actually learn how to fly by himself. That has to happen. So the institution itself later on can be very restrictive. As far Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, as soon as a movement becomes an institution, you should know that Bhakti Devi can no longer reside there in that place, because Bhakti needs the inner self to be liberated from the material environment completely, in the sense that we no longer have a feeling of necessity or indebtedness to the material society, but we have our allegiance to Sri Radhika and our spiritual preceptors as the priority, not the material aspects. And very often in an institutional environment, it's the material aspects that take precedence in the various activities that we have to perform and so on. You understand what I'm saying? Yes? No? Don't understand? Okay. Anyway, formally accepting initiation from the spiritual master and taking initiation from him in the true sense are quite different. The disciple receives the Diksha mantras from Sri Guru, and when he becomes qualified, he too can become a spiritual master. There is no fault in him doing that. But if a person accepts disciples before this, he is not acting in accordance with his level of realization. This is the verdict of the scriptures. A person's qualification is always to be considered. We have to consider our own adhikar in this event. And the title of the essay is about who can become guru. This is the topic that he's talking about. Shastra tells us that ordinary sound vibration, Shabda Samanya, this is ordinary sound vibration, and transcendental sound vibration, Shabda Brahma, are completely different. I am just giving the same Diksha mantras that my Gurudev gave me, and therefore the effect will be the same. This is not so at all. If one accepts formal Diksha and does not endeavor to advance, he cannot become a real disciple. Only the disciple who possesses the qualities of a guru described in Shastra can become a guru. Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udara Parsta Vegam, Etan Vegam, Yo Vishahet Dira Sarvam Apiman, Pritivim Shashishyate. He's quoting this verse from Upadeshamrita, first verse. A wise and self-composed person who can subdue the impetus to speak, the agitation of the mind, the onset of anger, the vehemence of the tongue, the urge of the belly, and the agitation of the genitals, can instruct the entire world. In other words, all may become disciples of such a self-controlled person. In this regard, we can apply to Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj. He, from his very childhood, exhibited this ability to control his senses. This is remarkable. So he's not an ordinary personality in this world in any means at all. So this is something to consider, remember. Such a genuine guru can make the whole world his disciple. He is a Goswami. His senses are under his control. One who is Godas, or subordinate to his senses, Godasa, means slave to one's senses. The Goswami means master of one's senses. Their meanings are opposite. Now I sincerely analyze my own qualities. The daring concept of becoming a guru is eliminated. If I contemplate becoming a guru because I am tempted by the fame and worship this position easily awards, I will never be able to perform the true function of a guru. So this article goes on. It's very, very beautiful. And we can immerse ourselves in the precepts that he's just spreading out very beautifully the conception of guru, and eliminating false guru is what he proceeds to actually do. And those people who desire that position rather than the understanding to sincerely encourage and help the conditioned souls, but simply to, because in the conditioned state there is such a mountain of material false ego is there. So there's some twist on the presentations that those false gurus will actually present in the world, because they have a desire for something other than the absolute reality. So he goes on to express this very beautifully. He says, one cannot become a guru just by memorizing the verses in scripture, such as the Vedas, and then concocting an explanation for them. One has to be, my Guru Yudev used to describe the qualification for a guru principally is his guru nishta, is that guru's guru nishta. If his guru is completely sold out to his guru and following every single direction of his guru, then he has some qualification. If he's following absolutely the instructions of his guru, then his qualification is there. And then he leaves, I'll just read this end part because I want to read something about Srila Vamana Maharaj, so I'm making this quite brief here. So he talks about measuring our progress. This is at the end of his lecture. And he gives this beautiful verse, Bhakti Parashena Bhavavaraktiya, Anyatra Kaisa Trika Ekala, Prapadyamanasya Yatash Natasus, Tushti Pushti Shud Apayo Nugusham. This is from the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter. With each morsel of food that a hungry person eats, he simultaneously experiences satisfaction, nourishment, and relief from hunger. Similarly, a surrendered devotee who is engaged in the performance of bhakti simultaneously realizes his worshipful deity, strengthens his relationship with that deity, and becomes detached from this temporary world of material relationships. So these three stages, very clear, to progress, to advance. He's already mentioned that unless one has this utsaha, this greed to advance, then he won't advance. He'll just maintain his position within the society or whatever, but he won't actually make progress. One has to contemplate these topics very significantly and deeply. And the faith that he's acquiring from his guru will have that pure faith. Shraddha Shabde Vishvasa Koi Sudrita Nishchoy. He'll have that pure faith. And then from that example, the Shishya can take something of that faith to himself. And depending on the strength of his faith will depend on his progress. And his progress then will be deep, and his faith will be deepening. That's the way the process actually evolves. Day by day, our faith is in. Day by day, we are becoming more Sharanagat. It's not that Sharanagat is just a stage and then I go by there. It's always manifesting. So this is the nature of the enthusiastic sadhak. So this lecture is very beautiful, and it's just a sample of the erudition and sensitivity of Srila Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj. He would present always a very rivetingly interesting, captivating lecture, and you always knew that he had your best interest at heart. He would be addressing the persons within front of him, and he would be urgently wanting to inspire their hearts with pure Guru Nishta. This is actually the backbone of what he's saying in this particular lecture. But I also want to glorify Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, and we have an incredible publication arrived, I think it was this year, perhaps, um, 2021, so 2 years ago. But it was only became most published recently, most populated recently. So these are all the letters that Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, he wrote to so many devotees, particularly our beloved Umadidi. He had a long history of communicating with Umadidi over the years, from the 60s right the way through. And it's very powerful to hear any of his letters, to hear his thoughtful reaching out to the individuals and his sensitivity about his connection. I think we get the same with Bhaktivedanta Trivikrama Maharaj and the same with Srila Maharaj. They were so personal in all of their relationships, even though Srila Vamana Maharaj had thousands of disciples. He knew all of them. And if you meet any of them today, they all will tell you how much Srila Vamana Maharaj loved them, because they would just glance into those eyes of his that I described in the darshans, and so much potency would penetrate into the hearts of the shishyas. It was absolutely extraordinary what the ability that he had to reach into someone's heart with such love and affection. And Srila Trivikrama Maharaj was like this also. So these are not ordinary people. So this is one letter that he's writing from Sri Gokul Ganj Gaudiya Math in Golak Ganj in Dhubri, Assam in 1972. So I want to read some of this, and then I want to read a letter directly to Umadidi, something there. Just to, I'm sure all of you will get many appreciations and realizations of this person who is writing this. I don't have to comment here. So he's saying, Sneha Padashu. This means with affection, I am greeting you. He says Ma, so it's to a woman, that there's no name on this particular letter. Quite a long time ago, I received a letter from you containing several questions. Due to the pressure of numerous other tasks, I could not give a prompt response to your letter, so please do not be disturbed. Please forgive me for this unintentional error. Meanwhile, I have tried twice to send Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat to you, but I could not communicate properly with you. I thus have sufficient proof on my end that I have been thinking of you. When you demand said proof, I will produce it. So I guess this woman is asking him why he's not communicating with her, etc. Now, Srila Vamana Maharaj is saying that he's innocent in this regard. I hope that you are studying and discussing Sri Patrika and other sacred literatures on a regular basis. It is by the power of Sukriti accumulated in previous births that one obtains good association, and thereby the awakening of Tattva Gyan and the attainment of Bhagavad Bhakti. The instruction that one should take advantage of sadhu sangha in the form of sacred granthas is given for when obstacles are created in hearing and reciting Harikatha in direct sadhu sangha. I'll read that again. The instruction that one should take advantage of sadhu sangha in the form of sacred granthas is given for when obstacles are created in hearing and reciting Harikatha in direct sadhu sangha. So these obstacles will arise, but we need sadhu sangha to purify those obstacles. If one does not take advantage of it, one will be compelled to be deprived of this sort of opportunity. By doing so, one's heart becomes resolute, and as one-pointed conviction arises, the sadhak or sadhakis longing to perform Bhagavat Bhajan greatly increases. To have this sort of conviction in the service of their beloved and supremely worshipful Sri Bhagavan is the cherished ambition of each and every sadhak and sadhika. By hearing, chanting, and remembering the name, form, pastimes, etc. of Sri Bhagavan, one's attachment to him increases exponentially. That is why there is the instruction of performing Anukul Krishnanushilanam, favorably cultivating love for Krishna. In Bhagavatam 10:38, we find the topic of Sri Akrura's hopeful meditations upon Krishna. Longing for darshan of Krishna, he says, "Shortly I will surely be able to behold in tangible form the Guru and refuge of all saintly persons, the supremely charming and greatly delightful Sri Hari, the origin of Lakshmipati Narayan. As soon as I see him, I will prostrate myself at his beautiful lotus feet, which are the abode of freedom from sorrow, fear, and death, and before the cowherd boys alongside him. I will prostrate myself before the cowherd boys alongside him. Then upon my head, which will be laid at his feet." This is Akrura speaking. Akrura is speaking in the hopes of having the darshan of Krishna when he comes to Vrindavan to take Krishna to Mathura for the wrestling match in Kamsa's arena. He's describing the footprints that he's witnessing here. Then upon my head, which will be laid at his feet, Sri Krishna will offer those lotus hands of his which grant fearlessness to all mankind. Indra and Bali Raj gained authority over the three worlds by offering arghya, scented water, into those lotus hands. That all-seeing Supersoul, the Supreme Lord, will cast his merciful glance upon me, and as in that moment, I too will be freed of all sins and become sanctified. So he's explaining to this lady, he's giving her great hope. He's offering great hope here to that lady in the form of this Akrura pastime when Krishna comes to Vrindavan. If one does not offer such moods of devotion unto Purushottam Sri Krishna, one's birth is fruitless and meaningless. Sri Bhagavan does not have favorites, friends, enemies, people he does not like, or people he neglects. Nevertheless, whatever you pray for from a Kalpavriksha tree is what you will get. In the Gita 9.21, 4.11, Sri Bhagavan has conveyed this by saying, Soham sarva bhuteshu name dyeshu sti na priya. I am equal to all living beings. I do not have enemies or favorites. And yeyata mam prapadyante tam sataiva brajamyaham. As all take shelter of me, I reciprocate accordingly. These sorts of hopes and longings of the Premika Bhakta who has attained anurag for Sri Bhagavan transport him to the higher levels of bhajan. This is very, very beautiful. I appreciate that he's writing to some lady who's probably alone in some place, not having a lot of association. So he's extending this mood of hopefulness with the example of Akrura, when Akrura came to Vrindavan and saw the illuminating footprints of Sri Krishna and became very hopeful of quickly attaining his darshan. Akrura hadn't had at that time the darshan directly of Krishna. He'd been bound more or less in Mathura by Kamsa, so he hadn't had Krishna's darshan. But now he's about to have Krishna's darshan, so he's very hopeful. So it's interesting, Srila Vamana Maharaj is giving this example. Of the various qualities of a devotee, who wishes to ascend to levels of prem, the topic of manasunyata, freedom from pride, and sumutkanta, intense eagerness, has been described. Sri Akrura says, "What austerities have I performed? What pious works have I undertaken? And what charities have I given to which exalted recipient that has enabled me to attain the darshan of Sri Krishna today?" Just as the recitation of the Vedas is impossible for those deluded by sensual pleasures, for Sudras and fallen Brahmanas, it is a highly unlikely prospect for me to come face to face with Sri Krishna. Then again, though I am fallen, it is not impossible for me to obtain Krishna's darshan, just as sometimes one of many blades of grass caught in the current of a river can come upon its banks. Sometimes one of the living entities being swept along by time as per the dictates of karma can cross over the ocean of material existence. Today all my auspiciousness has been destroyed and my birth has become a success because I have attained the opportunity to bow at the lotus feet of Sri Bhagavan, which are contemplated by exalted yogis. And so, it is with this sort of hope and burning aspiration that one must maintain one's steadfastness in performing bhajan sadhan of Sri Krishna Chandra, the Lord of life itself. It has been taught that one takes shelter of a bona fide guru to perform this sort of anushilanam and sadhu bhajan, sadhana bhajan. The necessity of accepting a guru is made explicit in these words: Ashraya liya bhaje, tare Krishna nahi tyaje, are sava mare akarana. Krishna does not abandon those who take shelter of the Vaishnavas and worship him. All others perish for no reason. You're following? It's very beautiful. Those who attempt to subdue the horse of the mind, which is difficult to tame, even for the immortals, and those who have conquered their senses without the shelter of the feet of a guru, are ignorant of the means of their own spiritual development. They are suffering and afflicted by hundreds and hundreds of obstacles. Thus they reap only sorrow in this ocean of material existence, like a merchant at sea without a captain. If the refuge of all, the supremely blissful and omniscient Guru, is present as one's protector, then there is no purpose in having relatives, a body, wealth, home, land, vehicles, etc. Human beings who are unacquainted with these transcendental matters and absorbed in the pleasures of Maya cannot, by nature, contribute bliss. Contribute bliss to the ever perishable and inessential world of material existence. Those prideless saints who are known as the destroyers of all sins because they hold Sri Bhagavan's beautiful lotus feet in their hearts serve the earth's many holy places and Sri Dham. Because they absorbed their heart in the eternal blissful Sri Bhagavan, they do not serve the blind well of family life, which robs one of discontentment, steadiness, tolerance, peace, and other positive tendencies. Persons whose hearts are absorbed in Sri Bhagavan do not probe the virtues and flaws of their sinful and pious activities, because their bodily identification and false ego are wholly absent. They are even above all injunctions and prohibitions. It is because such persons are constantly singing the pastimes of Bhagavan that individuals who do not know anything of the truth can grasp said recitations of Bhagavan's qualities and ultimately attain the shelter of Sri Bhagavan, who embodies their own truest welfare. By imparting this sort of instruction on the subject of Atma Tattva, the truths of the soul, and conferring unto Narad Rishi Atma Gyan, knowledge of the soul, Sri Narayan Rishi revealed the esoteric truth of all the Vedas and Puranas and illustrated the necessity of accepting a guru. So he's strengthening her Guru Nishta. Every single word of this is strengthening her. And I'm just appreciating how much time he's spending writing this very clear letter. One who accepts the instructions of Sri Guru is illuminated by divine knowledge. Following the instructions of Bhagavan in the form of Guru is the only means to cross over the ocean of material existence, and it is serving Guru that satisfies Krishna, in which end one is to offer one's whole heart and soul. On the topic of attaining all perfection, the real peace by pleasing Guru is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1080. The mother and father from whom one takes human birth in this realm are one's first gurus of the worldly sort. Thereafter, one who gives that person the sacred thread and instructs him in the Vedic scriptures is the second guru, and one who grants those in all ashrams knowledge in the form of Diksha into the Vishnu mantra is the topmost guru. It is said to be Bhagavat Swarup, the form of God himself. In this realm of men, those among the followers of Varnashram who adopt the instructions of Sri Bhagavan in the form of Guru happily cross over the ocean of material existence as the supersoul situated within all living beings. Sri Bhagavan does not gain from the observance of grihasta or brahmachari vows the kind of satisfaction. Sri Bhagavan does not gain from the observance of grihasta or brahmachari vows the kind of satisfaction he derives from a person's dedicated service to Guru. Disciples offer their bodies, minds, and words in every respect with devotion for the sake of Gurudev, thereby offering the whole of their hearts to said bona fide Guru and proving their full-fledged surrender. If that bona fide Guru is satisfied, all the disciples' ambitions reach perfection, and by his gracious blessings, knowledge of the Vedas manifests in their hearts. Many topics remain to be discussed in relation to Guru Tattva. Take my hearty blessings. Write and send me your questions once again. Iti, your eternal well-wisher, Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj. So we just get an insight into his mood of encouraging his disciple in the mood of Guru Nishta is the backbone. And this is what he principally is speaking in this whole letter. Should I read some more? It's okay. You can listen. It's not always easy to listen to someone reading, so I'll just read a little bit more of this letter to Umadidi. This is written in the 6th of the 6th, 1972. Actually, this book is only compiled on the back of the mercy of Umadidi because she contributed something like 300 letters from Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj to the archives of our various granthas. And it was because of this large quantity of letters that this whole compilation, which is called A True Servant, A True Master, very beautiful book. And there's one devotee, Srivas, young devotee in Vrindavan, who carefully put all this together. So I'll just read a bit of this and see how we go. Ma Uma, Sri Guru, the Vaishnavas, and Sri Bhagavan. These three are omniscient. They are seers of the truth and speakers of the truth. The causeless compassion they extend to the conditioned souls in ways that are unfathomable to them is truly incomparable to anything else in this world. He's talking about transcendence directly. A soul who possesses sufficient spiritual merit can grasp something of their unsurpassed compassion. Sri Guru and Bhagavan see into the heart. To unfold the inner love and devotion of the sadhaks and sadhikas, Sri Guru and Sri Bhagavan fulfill their desires in ways known and unknown, and in this way solidify their conviction of in sadhan bhajan. If one does not become exclusively dedicated to bhajan, where is the chance one will reap any real result? Unless we have that nishta, that dedication, that there is nothing else in life except bhajan. If we think there are many other priorities and activities to attend to that are more important than this, then we are just going to become more bewildered and illusioned. If one does not become exclusively dedicated to bhajan, where is the chance one will reap any real fruit? Uttamahya apanaya mane trinadam. An exalted person deems himself more insignificant than a piece of straw. This mentality itself is the qualification or criterion for obtaining the mercy of Sri Guru and Bhagavan. If the inclination for devotion fails to arise, is there any scope for unsolicited mercy? Without following this Trinadapi Sunichena, how can mercy manifest in any quarter? Unconditional mercy is not subject to stipulations, but in a state bereft of devotion, it is not attainable. Yogyata vichare kichu nahi pai, tomara karuna sara. When I consider my eligibility, I find nothing. Your compassion is essential. This is the same mood of Jivadama. Brajanath and Vijay Kumar, they express the same to Raghunath Das Babaji. We have no standing in this world. Only your mercy is going to benefit us and carry us across this material ocean. This is the prayer of sadhaks and sadhikas expressing their humility though established in full qualification to attain Sri Guru and Guru's grace, the devotee is accustomed to expressing such natural humility, and that is his virtue or wealth that he has accrued from spiritual practice. It is this that is the devotee's prowess. So this humility is the devotee's strength, because it's only by this humility. Who is the most humble person in existence? It's Sri Radhika. And how is she able to attract the heart of Krishna fully, totally? So we are in her anagatya. So we are trying to embrace those extreme humble moods. And we can only perform that in reality by expressing those moods through Guru, who is present. It's only that, because Guru, Yasya Prasad, Bhagavat Prasada, is the representative of Krishna. Sakshat Daritra is the representative of Krishna in this world. So we have that opportunity to develop this mood of humility. As long as mundane conceit and egoism remain, causeless mercy is something one fails to realize. That is what inhibits the fulfillment of one's longing to serve, and one fails to feel Sri Guru and Bhagavan's omniscience. It is when the conditioned soul is gripped by mundane vanity that he becomes trapped in foolish arrogance, like the frog that puffs itself up till it bursts, thinking its little earthen dish is the whole of the earth. Those who have found shelter, however, overcome all obstacles and adversities on the strength of bhakti and shine with the divine, unsurpassable compassion of Sri Guru and Bhagavan. Ashoka Abhya, Amrita Adara, Tomara Charana Dhyaya, Tahite Ekana, Vishram Lavaya, Chadinu Bhavera Bhaya. Having found solace now at your two lotus feet, which bring the foundations of immortality, rid one of sorrow and fear, I have shed my mortal terror. This is the ardent prayer of a devotee who is resolute in his conviction to serve. Sri Guru Vaishnav Bhagavan, Tinera Smarana, Tinera Smarane Haya Vigna Vinasana. Remembrance of Sri Guru, Vaishnavas and Bhagavan destroys all obstacles. Extolling their qualities cleanses the heart and eradicates all the vices and impediments related to bhajan. Those who are sincerely absorbed in hearing, chanting, and remembering the glories of Sri Guru and Bhagavan cannot retain any vanity or egoism. Initiated into the dharma of honoring all others with no expectation of respect, they have already abandoned all these adversities to bhajan. This is the conclusive fact. Vaishnavera Gunagana, Korile Jivaratana. Singing the Vaishnava's glories delivers the living entity. According to this statement, it is essential to offer prayers, praises, and hymns to Sri Guru and Vaishnavas, even though they are equipoised and content in their own achievements. Svenaiva Labena Smaram Prasantam. Those who have taken shelter of the feet of a genuine Guru have already deserted bad company, because only by establishing themselves in proper conduct could they have proceeded to accept a Guru. Once strong conviction in bhajan comes, one abandons all types of bad association, no matter how near and dear those persons may be, knowing them to be swajanaikya dasu, dacoits calling themselves relatives. If you are to walk, I'm just going to read a few more minutes. If you're going to walk the path of bhajan, you must certainly be wary of offences. But retreating will not do. Aparad sunya hoye hloya Krishna nam. Be devoid of offences and take the name of Krishna. This is Sriman Mahaprabhu's instructions. Niraparade nama loya paya premadan. If one utters the holy name without offence, one attains the wealth of divine love. Premadan vina vyate daridra jivana. Without the wealth of divine love, this life is worthless and destitute. This is why it is instructed that one stay far away from the blasphemy of saintly persons, the scriptures and Guru. Although in preliminary stages one may be chanting the holy name with some offences, by the grace of Sri Nam Prabhu, all offences are dispelled. So this is very beautiful. Carries on for a while, but I'm going to stop here. And it's like checking to see if the rice is cooked. You just have to check one grain. So I think even just by reading one sentence from Pujapad Bhaktivedanta Vamana Maharaj, we can hear his urgent sincerity in wanting to nourish the Shishya, in this case Umadidi, in wanting to give her solace, in wanting to give her connection with the absolute reality, the absolute truth of Guru. And without this connection, nothing else can transpire. And what is that qualification? This Trinada pi sunichena, Tanora pi seshana, Amanina manadina, Kirtanya sarahari. Not wanting fame, not wanting adoration. Najanam nasundarim, kapitam va jagadishvare. This is how to access this place of humility. So today we are remembering these stalwart personalities, and we're so blessed to have such supports for our bhakti, because no doubt these two particular persons, if you're initiated into this Sangha of Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, if you have anything to do with Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj, you know that they are like one. These three personalities are like one. So by remembering them, and they will be very eager to support any followers of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj. So we can take their shelter today diligently, knowing that on this sacred day, because it is remarkable that they both left on the same day. It's not remarkable in one sense because they're both empowered Mahabhagavats. They could choose whenever they want to leave. My Gurudev could have left on this day also, but he chose to leave on the appearance day. of Srila Vamana Maharaj 3 months later in December. So he honored Srila Vamana Maharaj in that way. But the three are completely like one, supporting our bhajan. So if we take shelter of these two personalities today that we've described a little bit of course, having limited time, etc., but I've tried to bring out something of their characters and natures today for our remembrance and contemplation and prayers, to be focusing our prayers on these two personalities, requesting their mercy to give us that strong Guru Nishta, which is the only boat that can carry us across this material ocean. Without that, then we are helpless, floundering in this whirlpool of incessant material desires and distractions in this material world. As Kali deepens and deepens, these distractions become more prominent. So we have to take shelter of bhajan, no doubt. So I'm offering all my Dandavat pranams to Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Gosvami Maharaj and to the lotus feet of our beloved Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikrama Maharaj, and my Gurudev also today, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, begging for their mercy of this Guru Nishna. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhavevacha Patitanam Pavnivyo Vaishnavevyo Namaha. So we'll conclude with our Damodarastakam, and please all, if this is the magazine, if you are familiar, you can probably find it online somewhere. It's number 15, Kartik 2005. That's the, if you want to take a snap of it or something. Jai. Oh.
Namam Vishwaram Sachidanandarupam Rasat Kundalangokulevrachamanam Asodabiyolukaladavanam Varam Samachanto Drutyagoya Yudam Tango Nekam Yantam Varam Mojan Yudmena Shatanganetam Ushwasa Kampati Yakantakanka Sita Devadano Dalam Bhaktivedam Lila Virananda Kunde Sarvashami Majantam Mayavayantam Adiyashita Geshu Vakadikatvam Puna Pramatastam Shata Vritimante Varam Deva Mosham Mosham Dimva Nachanyaneham Varishadapika Idam Deva Purinata Gopala Balam Sadam Vimanasya Vijayam Idam Temukom Bhajam Bhavyatanilaye Idam Tujayasneka Rakashadavya Muhochamistam Bimba Rakadarange Manasya Vinasamalam Lakshalabe Namo Deva Namo Dharana Vishnu Vasita Brahmo Duta Jalatimata Kripa Drishti Vrishyati Dinambadano Vinanisha Mama Jami Yashirishya Sata prema bhaktin sakande prayacha Namo Shira Ome Sri Pramodaleha Namaste Dame Suragati Dame Bhakti Yogadayata Vishwasadame Namo Radhikaya Kvantiya Priyaya Namo Radhalilaya Devaya Turyam Namo Radhikaya Kvantiya Priyaya Namo Radhalilaya Devaya Turyam Jaya Damodara, Jaya Damodara, Jaya Damodara, Jaya Damodara. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radha Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Radhe Jaya Shri Radhe Jaya Radhe 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 Jai 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 Shri Radhe 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 Jai 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 Shri Radhe Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Haribo.
Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari
Haribo.
Srila Bhaktivedanta Vamana Gosvami Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Trivikrama Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj ki
Ki
jai.
Jai.
Arupa Nuga Guru Varga ki jai.
Jai.
Tomorrow we will celebrate Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada tomorrow. So that will also be very wonderful. Very purifying, most certainly glorifying these divine personalities. Don't doubt that their influence will come into our consciousnesses by this simple pushpanjali, simple glorification of these personalities. So thank you all so much. My dandavat pranams to all of you. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, kripa sindhubevacha, patitanam bhavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namaha.
Jai Sisi Yashoda Namadharji.